Okay, welcome back, Lauren Hayes, who is here chatting with me before Christmas about a very important topic for those of us going out and about during the festive season. It's how to cope with those social situations that you want to avoid, or where you know you're going to encounter people who are just unable to keep their opinions to themselves and are really painful to be around. Welcome back, Lauren.
I love that you've asked me to talk about this subject because I'm well known for hating social situations. Even though I understand how to sort my way through it, I often try to avoid like a champion, actually.
So do you give excuses?
Look, I think I've just built this happy little life where people kind of understand, but I also quit my job so I wouldn't have to attend Christmas parties and built a business where I'm the boss. But I think that Christmas is particularly stressful for a lot of people because it's supposed to be a happy, festive time. Mm-hmm. It's called the festive season, so there's this anticipation that it's going to be fantastic, which always makes it, in my opinion, harder because you have expectation is the mother of all disappointments, and if you don't want to attend a party, people actually get legitimately offended at that because they think that you should want to and you should, and they should all over you, you should have fun.
Yes,
and you're like, yeah, but I don't. So it's like this layer of complexity above the normal anxiety around hanging out with large groups of people with competing values.
And also it's a time where things traditionally go really wrong, like in relationships. So a lot of people are going, oh no, they're going to ask me about Barry and I broke up last month and I've not told anyone. And what do I say? And all my life is falling apart and I can't afford to buy a drink. What am I going to do? There is just so much additional pressure. And, I think we've all been in situations where we go, oh, you know what, it's just easier if I don't go because then I don't have to answer any questions.
Absolutely. And the worst part is, in so many cases, people, they've been polite the whole year or they're in a work context and they have all these rules that they've created about how they have to behave in a work context. But then for Christmas parties, it often gets thrown out the window. I don't know why that happens. Maybe it's excessive consumption of alcohol. Maybe it's just the power of red wine. What I tell people when I've had red wine is quite phenomenal. But, for me, especially when I was working for Big Fours, there's a lot of egos in the room. There's a lot of people who think they're very good at what they do, and a lot of them are very good at what they do, but you don't necessarily want to hear about it all the time. And there's those one or two people that know the buttons to press on every single person and they just find some kind of joy in making your life miserable. So what I used to do was I'd work myself up to these situations and I would almost turn them into an experiment of human behavior. So you understand where everyone is and what's going on. And I used to do this stakeholder analysis. It's so dorky, but, those who know me know that I'm a dork, so it's no surprise.
And we love you for it.
Yeah. We used to build this spreadsheet and it was like every person that I knew would be there that were key players, like not the people that there's no way I'm going to talk to them, but the key players and who they are and what they like and what their personality type is. And then I kind of write down topics that I talk to them about or things to avoid with them and all of those kind of things so that I would feel prepared coming in, because I think the reason we flip out is because our brain doesn't know what to do when it comes to a new situation or a situation that's been awkward before. So if you give your brain enough pre-warning, I suppose, you can come up with some answers, you can come up with some witty comebacks, how's Barry doing? Oh, well, you can, last time I checked, he was fantastic in February, that's going to shut them down real fast. They're like, oh, sorry, I didn't know you broke up. That's okay. I don't write to you. You're not supposed to know that.
Yes.
And you can build your own little matrix and answers so that you have a little arsenal of how to deal with people, because our brain is super complex, and if you don't give it a way to handle situations, it's going to like go into a complete tizzy.
Yeah, and
Or
it stops you looking like a bunny
No,
in the headlights, because your fight or flight kicks in and you go, oh no, I've got to say something. What do I say? And there's this really awkward pause. But if you kind of have practiced the scenarios before, which, may sound dorky, but it's actually really smart, you can ace it and you can move on gracefully. Like there's a saying that a lady online has perfected, and it's smile, wave and move on, like a royal family member. And I really like that, because so often we think we have to give an answer when really, as you said, we don't. We don't need to tell everybody everything. So if we have a pat answer, we can just exit stage left and everyone's happy.
Well, the thing is, we all come into the world with our look good and be right, our ego. We come in with how we feel the world should look and think and act and whatever. But the problem is, when you put a bunch of people in the room heightened by alcohol, everyone's egos come out to play, So if you're sitting there and they think you should have told them about something and something comes up and it gets all awkward, it's just never going to be a good win. And you've got a really great story that I'm going to poke you about in a moment, where, sometimes it's easier to just be wrong than it is to continue with the argument.
Yeah, so I'm going to go into that story.
Yeah.
This is something that I've perfected over the years, the art of allowing yourself to look as if you've lost the battle, but you're really winning the war. It's that, it's a technique where you look at interaction as part of a longer term game. So, I was recently out at a party. Someone was getting political, and anyone who knows me knows I love a chat about politics. I read so much about it. But I knew that me telling this person, A, they were wrong, and B, giving them the correct information would just fuel the fire. And I saw that when I actually diplomatically said, well, actually, I don't think that's the case. And like their eyes widened and they leaned forward and kind of pushed me out of the conversation. Sorry, you've got a big bar in front of your face there. But, they were basically talking really quickly and they had one eye on me, as if to say, don't you dare interject. This is my conversation and I'm right. And I just sat back and thought, I'm just going to enjoy my drink, because I don't need the aggravation. And quite frankly, I don't think anybody around here is interested in seeing me go to the mat on politics. What's the aim of this interaction? It's to have fun. And I'm just going to park that, because I actually look quite a lot better than this person with their crazy eyes.
Yeah. Well, people can really send themselves into their own crazy corner. I think a lot of people are conscious of interactions and whatever, and they can see that you would have let that go. They would have seen that you had a fairly good argument, and because they know you, they work with you in a corporate context, they know that you're well read. They know that you're smart. So when they see you just go, you know what, it's just not worth going there, and you go, okay, no problem. And they can see that, and you got to work on not having the you're a dickhead face.
The self-satisfied smile, yeah, that's hard.
Yeah. I have the, okay, no problem, you can believe that. That seems to happen a bit because I haven't yet got perfect control. But I just wanted to loop back to something that you said there that I hadn't really thought of before. Listening to the sentence that person was using, so I think, that's a really digital way of communicating. So there's different ways that people communicate. There's digital communicators, there's feelers, so they'll say I feel, and a digital communicator is no think. So when someone's coming at you with an I think, they're a digital communicator, and they're also they're probably a type A or a stronger personality as well, because they're often linked together. There is very little reason that you should ever engage in an argument in a public forum with them.
Yeah.
Because if they're a digital communicator, a strong personality, they've got extreme amounts of ego, and I am this person, by the way. They've got extreme amounts of ego and they're unlikely to fold. But then they're also, because they are a strong personality, they're likely to have a group of people who are like their posse, and they'll go back and bitch about you, and it's just never, ever worth it. So if you can start to listen to the people at your party and feel and think and the words that they're using coming out of their mouth, you can identify who's worth having a discussion with and who's just really not.
You've actually made me remember something called micro expressions, and I'm sure you would have heard about this, but for people who don't know what that is, that's that split-second facial reaction that gives away someone's true feelings when they're really not giving much else away. And if you watch people's faces, you can see the moment where they either notice what you're doing and get that "I'm going to get you later, bitch" look, or they've got that complete confusion and don't know how to react. And I think it's really important not to drink at these, particularly at work functions, but when you know you're going to be in a fraught situation, so you can be on your game and look for these triggers so that you can keep things flowing in the way that you want them to go.
I probably wouldn't go as far as not drinking at all, but maybe
just a little bit.
Taking control of the amount of alcohol you drink. I find that it depends on how you want to position yourself as well. So when I was working for Ernst & Young, I've told this story 1,000 times, but I'm going to tell it again. I got told that everyone thought I was a dumb blonde because I am blonde and I am happy. I would walk in and like, "Good morning, everyone. How's your day?" And I wore bright colours. I'm not one to wear only black. And in my first performance review, I got told that everyone in the office had the perception that I was really dumb. And I graduated in the top 5% of Australian students. I'm not a dumb person. I'm quite smart, actually. And I went, "Oh, well, okay. So everyone thinks I'm dumb. So what I'm going to do is convince everyone I'm really smart by working with everyone and saying the sentence, 'Give it to me, I get shit done. Give it to me, I get shit done. Just give it to me, I'll get it done.'" And first of all, people are like, "I'm not giving it to you. You're really dumb." But after the first few times, when people talked about me, they would say, "Just give it to Lauren. She gets shit done."
Oh, I love it.
So I've implanted this sentence into their head strategically, absolutely. And you can do exactly the same thing at a party. So if you want to be perceived in a certain way, you can talk to a bunch of people and do the same thing or say the same thing. It's totally manipulative, absolutely. But what you do is when someone recognises or has something that goes in their brain. So let's say you talk to me about Donald Trump, all of a sudden I'm going to start seeing Donald Trump everywhere, right? So if you say, "Oh, I'm just charming like that," and then you go around and talk to a few people and you keep saying that, what happens is it implants in those people's brains, and then their reticular activating system, which is a small part of the brain that's looking for evidence in your environment, will start firing to find evidence that you're charming, right? Now, if you're working the room and you're being charming, they'll be like, "You know what's that?" Right? So if you're like, "I'm going to be the fun one at this party," or "I'm going to be the charming one," my natural inclination is to sit at the bar and rock back and forth and just drink wine and not talk to anyone because that's my happy place. But instead, everyone believes that I'm super good at networking and really fun to be around because I make the intention before I go that I will speak to at least 10 people and make them laugh. And
I love that.
Yeah, and I draw on my flirty 16-year-old self. I don't put a persona on, but I draw on this. When I was 16 to 18, I was a bartender, and I was so good at that job because there was a bar between me and the other person, so I could say whatever I wanted. Of course, not rude, but flirty. And that's who I draw on when I go out. And it's not hard to compliment someone, "Oh, look at that lovely shirt," or they say something funny, go, "You are funny. People have told me that." But, you have to be sincere. But by having that,
it's a clever strategy because it's almost like becoming an actor for a little while. And if you are naturally shy, it's probably a great strategy to use to get through a couple of social functions that you would probably not want to attend. You can, if you look at it as this is a 30-minute window that I have to survive, and I'm going to draw on this element of my personality and actually treat it like a bit of a game and see how many times I can say I am charming, and give myself a reward if I do it 10 times. It's back on your terms. You're not the victim anymore.
Yeah, I like that. It's controlling your experience. And then if it's getting out of hand, you can always say you need to go to the toilet.
Yes. Yes, we were talking earlier about how we both use that line to get out of heated situations. And you know what? People can tell what you're doing. Like, I did this once in a work context, and people looked at me because they knew that I was really angry. But I thought, I don't care, because if I stay here a minute longer, I'm going to say things that are really unhelpful, and they're not going to represent the brand that I want. So I'd thought before about how I wanted to be perceived, and I knew I wasn't going to go there. So, giving yourself time and space is allowable, and it's actually really smart. So don't feel like you're copping out doing that.
I mean, you can get really crass and be like, you're giving me the shits, I'm going to the bathroom. That's super, super crass. Or you can just say, I beg your pardon, I just need to pop to the bathroom. I'm really enjoying this conversation, but I need to go to the bathroom. Just depends what level of, personality you have as which line you're going to get away with. But I do think that, social situations, even if you're naturally uncomfortable, it's about aligning the person you want to be to the conversation you're having with yourself as well. Yeah. We can use words like I'm shy, or I have to survive this party, or all of these things, and they're the natural inclination, right? But if you just rid yourself of those words, then they're no longer your reality. And I know that sounds so naff. I understand that. But honestly, it does work. So if you say, I'm a fantastic listener, you don't have to say I enjoy parties, right? If that's too far from your reality, don't do that. Then you're just setting yourself up for failure. But if you say to yourself, I'm a fantastic listener, and that feels good, when you go to these parties, all you're doing is listening. You don't have to be charming. You don't have to be engaging. You just have to ask people about them, and that is charming and engaging. Does that make sense?
It absolutely. And it's a different spin on mindset work. We think of affirmations as something we use for bigger picture goals or projects, for example. But, you can use it for a short-term context. I really like that. Good idea.
I use it for everything. Like, even, this is totally not party related, but my family, I love them dearly, but they have quite strict kind of theories on how the world should work. Like 3 weeks after my child was born, they were like, why are you not at church? It's been more than 2 weeks. And I'm like, well, I just didn't go is the answer. I chose not to go. And on Sunday, my dad said, oh, well, you didn't text us to tell us you were coming for dinner. So we've decided we're only going to do it every 2 weeks because it's too stressful figuring out if you're coming or not. And I'm like, I'm a 31-year-old woman. I shouldn't need to text my parents whether I'm coming for dinner or not. If I said on Monday I'm coming and it's Sunday, I'm still coming, Anyway, I got a little bit offended by that because I was like, you guys just always want it your way, and I understand you're in your 60s, but, I'm not even 3 months into having a kid, and sometimes life falls apart. Like, we've had to record this again because my baby lost his tit. And, that's okay because he's a baby and he doesn't know better. Yeah. But my parents, in my opinion, should know better. There is no need to put that kind of pressure and that kind of guilt on me if, and listen to the words I'm using, and guilt on me. They can't do anything to how I experience the world. I can only do things to how I experience the world, but it is so easy to fall into that victim mentality, Yeah. And I came home and I knew this was happening. I knew I was getting upset because my dad had said this, and I was taking it as, I'm never going to be good enough unless I'm perfectly aligned to exactly how they want to live their life. So I had a shower because that's one of my strategies because it cleans me off. And I sat down and I said, Dan, we're going to my parents for dinner. However, I'm going to sit here until I'm no longer affected in any way by what Dad said. And it took me a good 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I had a cup of tea I thought about it and I framed it in my head, and, you know, in his reality, it is annoying that I didn't text, you know, and I talked myself around it. And one of my favourite strategies, and you can use this in the middle of a party too, is you kind of think of the situation in one circle. So this is happening, this is how I feel about it, da 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 da. And then there's another circle, which is the actual facts. So how I felt about it is Dad's attacking me because I'm not doing exactly what he says, and he doesn't trust me and as an adult, and I'm obviously a shit mother and all of this other stuff that's going through my head. The facts of the situation is Mum didn't know how many vegetables to put on because I didn't text. My dad loves my mum, so he gets upset. So neither of them are actually true. But which one do you want to focus on?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't change this if I choose to live in it. But what I can do is if I choose to live in this one, I can either just leave it as facts, or I can make up my own story, which is I love my parents, therefore I will text them to let them know so that doesn't cause irritation. You know, and then it no longer hurts.
Yeah, but I love what you did there, because you gave yourself some distance, and when you give yourself distance, you can think more clearly and you can start to separate the emotions from the facts, which, you know, are different because everybody's perception is a different version of reality. But at least you can work out a way forward and go, you know what, these buttons are being triggered, these beliefs are being triggered, and really I don't think that's where they're heading.
Yeah, and ultimately that's probably what a cigarette break is for. I'm not condoning cigarettes, but there is absolutely no reason that you shouldn't be able to step out for 5 or 10 minutes, just realign yourself. I do this at parties all the time, and I just tell people I'm just going to head out and have a breath of fresh air, you know, or I don't tell people at all and just walk outside and have a little chill out. Because when you remove yourself from an emotional situation, or any situation, in fact, you're removing yourself from the energetic field that you're standing within as well. So if you're surrounded by 20 people, subconsciously and physically, you're being impacted by those people. So if you're really uncomfortable, removing yourself from that situation then allows you to, wanky sounding, but center back into your own self. And then you can go back in and be within that impact as well. It's neurocardiology, it's cellular protein design. You know, the science of it is pretty awesome, but you actually are legitimately impacted by people. And ultimately, if you don't like anyone you work with, for the love of all things, get a new job. Like, if you go to a Christmas party and every single person that gives you the whoops, you probably shouldn't be there, because you need to find somewhere that aligns to your values. So you should have at least a few safe space people that you're working with, that you could probably brief beforehand and say, you know, I'm going to probably pop out a few times because I'm going to be awesome at this party, but I might need to breathe out.
You've actually touched on a strategy, because I was jotting down some notes before we talked, and that was one of the things that I wrote down is, you know, enlisting help. If you know you need help in these situations, talk to some trusted people and say, if you see me getting into an awkward situation, can you intervene and ask if I'd like another drink? Or, you know, can I say a word and you'll know to ask me to step outside because you've got to, you know, go through something that you've just received a text message on, or something like that. Just so that you know that you're not alone in that can make such a big difference.
Well, why is that not okay anymore? You know, we used to do that as girlfriends when we were 18-year-olds in the pub. You know, like, I remember when I was 16, I was at an underage gig because my school band was playing. And a guy touched my butt. And I had never had anyone do that before. I went to a very small Christian school and I was very, 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 very sheltered. And I remember grabbing my girlfriend's hand and being like, take me to the bathroom now. And she took a few moments to figure out what was happening and then took me off. And I was shaking and scared and like so overreacting now when I look back. But it was my first time that a boy had ever touched me, ever. So I was a bit stressed out. And that's perfectly normal when you're 18. So why isn't it perfectly normal when you're 35? You know, I think it's great.
But I
can
think
have your
by
little.
that age, people think they have to have it all together. We tell ourselves these stories that we have to put on this mask of being okay and being able to cope with everything. And I think getting comfortable with being a little bit vulnerable with people. And you know what? If they use it against you, then you never trust them again. But you do have to trust someone at some stage.
Yeah. I love the exit clause. Me and my husband even have a word. We use pelican. If things are all going wrong or I just had enough, I'm like, oh, did you see the pelicans yesterday? And he'll be like, all right, we got to go now.
I'm remembering that.
If I ever use pelican on the call with you, you'll be like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's perfectly reasonable to have an out. Absolutely. And honestly, these parties shouldn't be the worst thing in the world. They're designed for people to get to know each other, people to bond, to celebrate. And if they are something that causes you significant anxiety, you know, and you've tried all the techniques and you've tried all the strategies, then maybe you need to look to find a safer space where you have these people who trust you, you know, or you trust them. I think there's a lot to be said about small shifts. So as a mindset coach, a lot of people come to me and they want to change their personality completely or, you know, go from being super uncomfortable to super comfortable. And that's not going to happen in one or two parties. You know, this is something that, like anything, takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
So you have to be comfortable with the small step changes, and you're not going to go from being the shyest person in the room to bouncing in with enthusiasm. You're just not in one party. So finding a safe space and finding the little incremental steps that you can make, whether it's having that stakeholder engagement plan, whether it's the pre-framing, whether it's removing your identity words that you're using, and just try and focus on the small incremental benefits, then you're going to have a little bit more enjoyment, because not only will you enjoy the experience of the party, but you're also likely to go home and go, look at me. I didn't flip out. I'm so proud of myself. Well, that's what I do anyway. Little celebration.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I used to be very shy, and now, you know, I'm not. But, you know, it took a long time and a lot of practice. And I think if you look at it as a long-term game, you take the pressure off yourself, and you also give yourself the space to make a couple of mistakes along the way, because we are not going to get it right all the time, you know, and you will learn what works for you. And by the time you get to the stage where you want it to be, you'll have this authentic approach. It won't be what someone else does, which never works, because, you know, it falls apart usually within the first experience you have where you're really tested.
Yeah. I mean, Christmas is an interesting time, and Christmas parties are an interesting thing. But ultimately, I see it as a reflection of life. You know, this is very deep. But if you're going to avoid a Christmas party because you don't want to go, which is something that I do regularly, that's okay. But you need to understand why you're doing it and then accept that. You don't talk bullshit to yourself, you know.
Yeah.
But I have this theory: when your whole world is shaking, you can't push the ceiling, right? So if lots and lots and lots of things are going a bit wrong in your life, like, then you can't expect that you're going to be able to put up with shit that you want to be able to put up. It's almost like decision fatigue or anything like that. You know, we've got a threshold, and if you're already teetering on the edge, don't put yourself in a situation that's going to tip you over, because you won't react well, and you'll be the crazy person everyone talks about from the Christmas party, right? So I've got a client at the moment. Her brother-in-law passed away. One of her friends is really unwell. She herself is going through some stuff. And we were talking about resilience strategies for this time of year. And ultimately, the resilience strategy we came up with was go on a holiday by yourself away from this shit. Because we went through all the techniques and all the strategies, and you could see her just going, I can't. Like, I want to, and I can see the strategy, but I just can't.
Yeah.
And I said, darling, then why? You know, what do you get out of it if you're at the edge, you're on the brink, and you put yourself in a position that's going to push you over? You know you're going to be pushed over. You know that being surrounded by your family at this time is going to drive you through the wall, and you might say things that become irreparable, you know, or you might do things.
And it's so important because at this time of year, and this is what we talked about in the earlier version of this chat, how things can fall apart for a lot of people in relationships at this time. And there's that added pressure to hold it all together. And there's that sense of shame that, oh, my goodness, you know, Barry and I broken up. And what do I tell people? You know, we've been together a year and I told everyone he was the one and now he's not. And, oh, you know. So sometimes the best strategy, as you said, is to just retreat because, you know, speaking from my own experiences with this sort of thing, even if you do front up, you are so fragile that people can just see that you're barely holding it together and you can't even talk properly with people. So you just actually have this cloud hanging over you that really affects everybody else's enjoyment. And, you know, I've since learned that, you know, like your client, sometimes it's just better not to go.
Yep. I had that exact situation the other day. My grandmother had a birthday party. I don't know how old she's in her 80s. She's old. She's fabulous. And there are a couple of people in my family that I'm very uncomfortable around, and they ask a lot of questions, and they hadn't met my son Reuben. And like beforehand, I was practicing all the stories I would tell. You know, if they ask me how it's going, I'll tell them this story, and just so I'd be prepared. As I said, everyone, I'm a total dork. And I got there, and my uncle, who I'm really close to, asked me a question, and I kind of answered it really flippantly, and I was looking at Reuben and he's like, "You're not okay, are you?" And I was like, "I'm holding it together, thank you." And then I saw him on Sunday at church and I gave him a big hug and I was like, "How are you?" You know, he's like, "There's my girl." So the people who know you really well are going to know that you're uncomfortable, but they'll be okay with it as well. And that's good. If people know you're uncomfortable but they're okay with it, they can help you in those situations, that's so fine. So I'm not saying you have to be perfect. Like even practicing and doing all the stuff I do, I still, around certain people, are like, oh my goodness, it's all going to go wrong.
But I think that's so comforting because for people who are a bit anxious, to see someone who is confident like you are actually admitting, you know what, even I dread going to some of these occasions, gives them some hope. You know, they're not alone. And I think when someone first told me this statistic of how many relationships end at Christmas time, when I was in that situation, I remember feeling, oh, you know, I don't have to pretend because I'm not alone. You just feel so much better knowing that it's not just you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm doing this podcast with no makeup on. I've got zits. I'm exhausted today. I had not a lot of sleep this week. And when you said we were filming it, I'm just like, you know what? I could go put some mascara on, or let's all just realise that we're all very tall children trying to sort our shit out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel adult enough to be an adult most of the time. And I go to these parties and you know, if you haven't read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, get it. It's a phenomenal book. And I put all those things into practice and I come home and sometimes I cry. Sometimes all of my energy has been used to be as charming as I can be. And I get home and I just cry, or I get in my car and I cry. I remember 2 years ago I was at the Wellness Summit for the Wellness Couch, where I used to podcast on. And the whole day, my podcast co-host Dave is very funny and also very handsome and has beautiful blue eyes and is just gorgeous. I love Dave. And everyone loves Dave. Everyone. Like one of those annoying people who can walk in a room and just like everyone loves him. And, you know, I was bullied as a kid, so I have all these hang-ups about that and I'm working through them, but they're still there deep down, you know. And we're at this function and he is getting swarmed by people, you know, who love him. And I'm getting like one person
Oh, no.
come and say hi. because I'm not the funny one on the podcast. I'm the smart one on the podcast, trying to rein in Dave's hilarity so that the poor people listening would get something out of it, you know. And I remember going home with Dave, so he was staying at my apartment with me, and I hopped in the car and I was driving home, and I just like had like one crocodile tear rolling down my cheeks. And he was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I'm just so tired, and I feel like I'm just the hanger-onerer at these events, and you're the star, and I'm happy for you to be the star, but I wish people liked me too, you know."
Oh, no.
What do you want about? People were talking to you all day. And it was the truth when you look back on it. But while you're in it, you see the three people talking to him and the one person talking to you. But then when he's not got anyone talking to him and you're still talking to people, you're not noticing that he is alone. Because you've got all these stories and these belief systems about your life that you don't believe people are going to talk to you or whatever. So you don't notice that stuff, that reticular activating system again. But I was so tired from being nice all day. I was so tired from being polite all day that I just slipped right back into all my fears and insecurities. Now, in reality, Dave is more popular than me, and that's totally fine because I could not handle being as popular as he could. Because if I'm crying from talking to one person, imagine what would be happening if I was crying talking to 50. We never have gotten to bed. So that's, you know, that's, I don't know why I told that story. I think it was because we're all the same.
It's a gorgeous story. But I think it reminds me of something I wanted to talk about, which was giving yourself time and space during this festive season. You know, it is a busy time and we are often running from thing to thing and we don't have the downtime we usually would. So if you naturally like a bit of downtime or you're anxious, you do need to build that in and go, you know what, I've got 5 parties on Saturday, I'll go to 3. So I've got some breaks in between and I don't have to talk to anybody. And, you know, I don't need to explain to people why I'm not coming. I'm just doing this because otherwise I'll be in tears by party 3.
Yep. And then the last comment, I don't know how much time we still have left. I'm pretty sure we've gone over. But the last comment I'd make is do as much as you can outside of this to have your life in control. So I'm the kind of person who loves to have a full fridge. I love to know there is food in the fridge, but good food and pre-prepared food. So if I'm starving hungry, I mean, you saw me earlier eating a pumpkin salad. I've got stuff in the fridge because I know that if I get hungry, I fall apart. I'm also the type of person who likes to have lots of undies clean. And I know that's ridiculous, but if I open my drawer and there's only one pair of undies, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not good. What if something happens and I have no clean undies? Such a stupid thing, but it's something that I like. So if you know there are parts of your personality that need some special care and attention, make sure you line that stuff up. Don't wing it in that space. Like if you're the person that loves your house neat or whatever, hire a cleaner or take the time to make your house neat during this festive season because otherwise you'll legit go nuts. Because very rarely is it the big stuff that gets us. It's lots and lots of little things.
So true.
So if you can sort your own little things, then you'd be in a better state.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, Lauren. I think we've given people a few strategies to use if they need them during this festive season and hopefully a bit of reassurance that they're not alone if they find it a stressful time. Thanks again and give Ruben a big kiss.
I will. He slept this time. I'm so proud of him.
Oh, you've trained him well.
Or just fed him till he fell asleep. Either one. See you later. Merry Christmas.